Hey everybody, Edo here, and I'm excited because I have Derek Funkhouser with me. Say hello, Derek.
Hey everybody.
And I met digitally Derek for the first time because I'd worked with James Hudson from Board Game Spotlight and Grim Forest and Skybound fame, but at the time he played Legendary Creatures, and he's like, you know, Ed, this game isn't for me. but But I've got this guy, Derek, doing written reviews for me, and it's absolutely a game he would love. If you send it along, I can have him check it out, and I think he'll appreciate it, because it's a medium-weight, sort of heavier-duty game than maybe James loved, or maybe he just didn't like the game. But either way, sent you along a copy. I think it's fair to say you enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
And that's when I first got to know you, and since then, independent from Legendary Creatures, I'm sure, your media presence has skyrocketed with not only Board Game Spotlight, but just at conventions and in volume and all that. So take us through how you got, like, how did you start? How did James find you? Or, like, where did the board game media thing begin for you?
That's a great question. So for me, it really started. It was the right place at the right time. James was looking for somebody to help, just like what you said, looking for somebody that could take on projects that he either didn't have time for or wasn't really in his wheelhouse. So he was looking for somebody. He sent out a message to actually a few different people, and I actually got it through the grapevine that he was looking for somebody. And some of my friends knew that I was kind of writing and that I enjoyed that type of thing. And they're like, hey, I want you to talk to this guy named James. And I'm like, okay, who's that? And so that's kind of where it started. James and I messaged back and forth. He said, hey, let's try this out. I want you to write for a few months, and then we'll see where this goes. And it worked out really well and ended up being part-time, and kind of just did that, just hustled. I was still full-time active military at the time. So this was all in my
active military?
Active military, yeah. So I was hustling after duty hours, like in the evenings, just working with Lizzie. And so it was pretty intense, but it was great. It was a great experience. And so it kind of just led up to where we are today.
First couple questions. So you had never, I was sort of under the impression, perhaps incorrectly, that you guys like knew each other and were local to each other. You would just saw a wanted ad, you applied to it, and got the job. And so you're gaming and writing at night, and in the military during the day, and then, at first it was just again that written segment, but then it started growing, and right now, if I'm not mistaken, and you can correct me, but you sort of, James Hudson ended up. He was building his media empire, building his Kickstarter empire, and then was like, you know what, I'm going to go join this other empire. Has Board Game Spotlight, you're sort of running and managing, right? Is that correct? Or
That is correct. Now, James and I, he built this over years, and so I came alongside him to help him grow the community that he'd built. And Lizzie as well came alongside, and she's been an absolute, just a great asset. She's downstairs with the baby right now. But
yeah, Lizzie being your wife.
Yeah, Lizzie being my wife. Yeah, she is my wife. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it worked. He decided to go to Skybound, which is an absolutely fantastic opportunity for him. He is still actively engaged with the Spotlight. We are 50-50 partners, but I am considered the director at the moment of running and managing the company.
Awesome. And so let's talk about Board Game Spotlight a little bit. I think I did a profile on it perhaps to some degree with James, but that was probably mixed in with 100 other things on Kickstarter. You're really focused on this, and though I do believe you were demoing a game at Gen Con that you designed. Maybe not. Maybe I
did.
Heard about it. I didn't play it, but I heard that. But let's keep moving. Let's set that aside. For Board Game Spotlight, it started out, if correct me if I'm wrong, with James. He wanted to have a very positive attitude, group presence where people could promote what they were doing, and he wanted to be able to do giveaways and contests and just really be a place to highlight and spotlight different creative and product endeavors. Is that how you would describe it, or?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a place where we can have a community where we can give back to the members. We do a lot of giveaways, as you know. We've kind of expanded the role of the Spotlight. It was very much a, hey, let's do a weekly segment where I highlight a game and then we're going to do some giveaways. And it's evolved. But, that's kind of the natural process of a group like this. And so nowadays, we have this group of almost 11 we're over 11,000 now, which is crazy to think about. But we're growing, and now it's more of a community where we bring not only like-minded people, but people that may not really see the same views as us, but we try to engage. We try to, just see and respect each other's opinions. Because we had this conversation about a week ago where, we all come from different walks of life. We're all from different experiences, different diversities. And so it's just respecting that person's experience and where they're at. And it just brings a better positive outlook on life and the hobby.
Yeah, and I want to give some people a sense of that size, because that is a really sizable group. Like in the grand scheme of board game groups, you guys say 11,000 and growing. Mm-hmm. The board game group's about 30,000, but Board Game Geek is only 50,000, right? So you're a fifth as big as probably the biggest board game Facebook forum, and that's pretty amazing, especially considering that, again, it's come from such a, I don't want to say it's amazing because it's come from a positive place. I'm saying it's amazing because it's come from a humble place to get big, and is including this positive message in terms of the work. Now, one of the things that I want to talk to you about is I've engaged with the board game group occasionally. I used to post more media there, and now I sort of alternate between things just to not overdo it anywhere. But over the years, it's been a place to talk about your Kickstarter, to promote your Kickstarter, to have board. You do your the video board game duet, spotlight duet.
It's the spotlight game night now. It's just a live stream game night. Yeah.
Spotlight game night. Yeah. But you sort of now have a number of services / opportunities for people to sort of work with you on a Kickstarter. And so, I mean, there's always you could welcome to be in the group and be a member and talk about your Kickstarter, and that's sort of a baseline like engagement thing. But in terms of the different services and spaces that you are using right now, can you just sort of describe what Board Game Spotlight can offer to a Kickstarter creator?
Yeah, absolutely. So James and I have evolved kind of like we talked about our presence in the Board Game Spotlight and the Kickstarter. And it's slowly, as I've been able to put more time, as Lizzie and I have been able to put more time into the business, it's slowly gained more traction. And really what we are trying to do is kind of allow both indie developers and publishers that are already mainstream to allow them kind of a one-stop shop. They can get an all-inclusive bundle that has, you get a banner in our group, you get a podcast interview, you get a preview video on our YouTube channel, which just hit 10,000. So that's really cool. 10,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, which
bigger
is
than this one.
They say it's hard to get 10,000. I wouldn't know. James did all the heavy lifting on that one, and we offer a live stream feature now. So every Tuesday and Wednesday night we have a Spotlight game night, and so that's when we live stream. And we do live stream outside of those normal convention hours, but if you do a Kickstarter package with us, you're going to get one of those main Tuesday or Wednesday night game nights. And we've also just started in this last week doing a spoiler section where I've had publishers reaching out to me saying, hey, I've got this game coming up. Would you mind throwing up a post like this, kind of like a first look type social media post? And so I've done that both for Artemis Project and Sky Kingdom games with the new Stonebound Saga expansion. And I've got a few more in the works. I'm waiting for some assets from a few people.
Sure. Okay, and so just to pull that apart a little bit, I mean, it's quite the coolest thing about those services, from my perspective as a Kickstarter creator, is the range of media types it hits. So in terms of engagement, right? The banner, for those who don't know, that's typically the banner at the top of the board game Spotlight page.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And then a podcast obviously is audio, and that's going off down in one channel and mm-hmm. one route. Then there's a YouTube channel. 10,000 viewers is a very significant number for most of the up and coming media. Like the Dice Towers or Watch It Played, and then streaming and a live playthrough. I mean, those are all really powerful ways to sort of engage and push audiences towards your Kickstarter. You call it a bundle. Presumably, these different things sort of have a menu and a cost and a price mm-hmm. to do the different things and work with you guys. And you've been, and one way or another, these have been services you guys have been offering for the last few years, right? It's not. I mean, you might have just added the spoiler, but But beyond that, I mean, it's not. You guys are established in doing this work and doing a great job with it, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's been about a year that we've been able to push these bundles with our Kickstarter previews. We were doing written previews, and then our podcast. We actually were with Jimmy Hudson in the Board Game Closet. We are actually going to start our own Spotlight podcast with James, Lizzie, and I. So that'll be where most of the interviews go. Sans August, it'll be September timeframe when we get our first episode out. But yeah, we've been established. We've been doing this for about a year. Really, the live streams are something that has been evolving over the last probably 6 to 9 months, where we've slowly been able to learn. It is a learning experience.
Sure, and live streaming is not easy when you have a board game, right? I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of showing it, making it look good, you know, you can't just do editing after the fact.
Not at all. And we still have some things that we are really hoping to introduce into the live streams. But for now, we like where we're at. We're getting a lot of engagement. We just actually live streamed Shards of Infinity last night with Ultra Pro. They had some giveaways for us. That was a lot of fun. And, you know, we've done not only Kickstarter live streams, but also retail. So, you know, we'll get sponsored by a retailer or by a publisher, and we'll do a live stream as well.
Play a game that's already out and available.
Correct.
And so are you still active military, and this is in the evenings? Is this full-time?
No.
Where are you at now?
Yep, this is full-time now. I finished the active duty obligation, my military service, and now I'm in the National Guard. So
cool. And so and in that regard, I mean, you've basically become, you know, board game media. One of the things I was curious about, and I wasn't familiar with your background, but I did know, like my picture of you was just the guy that played legendary creatures on his kitchen table and did a little write-up, right? But, you know, in whatever span of time that is, 2 years, a year and a half, I don't know, it's not even that long. You know, I saw you at Gen Con. You're not the shortest dude, right? You're a pretty sizable guy. But I saw you and you're not quite a Tom Vassell either, but you're a big dude. I saw you at Gen Con, you know, walking around like you own the place, so to speak, right? Like, just very confident. You were posting pictures of like your 50 game haul each day or whatever it was, right? And you know, for people who are interested in doing board game and content creation and media and that kind of thing, can you sort of like describe that transition and your experiences?
Sure. Yeah. You know, the first thing, and James says this a lot, but James has been he's just been very inspirational. Like, you know, the first thing when he gave me this opportunity, he's like, hey, this is an opportunity. What you choose to do with it, it's up to you. And that's so true. Like, a lot of times we'll hold ourselves back. You know, if you have media creation that you have in your brain, put it to paper, put it to a video, get it down. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because I've made plenty of mistakes, and Lizzie and I have learned through mistakes. Like, learn from your mistakes and continue to push forward. I mean, it's funny that it's kind of cliche, but every time that I kind of like feel like I don't want to do something, or I don't want to go outside my comfort zone, I just imagine that Shia LaBeouf gif, like, just do it. Just do it, you know? Like, seriously, that's what it takes. And so we just decided to latch on and go for it. And Lizzie and I have loved the ride so far. You know, with our hauls and stuff that we get from conventions, it's not so much of me like trying to brag about what we're doing. But
I wasn't.
I know. But I just want to show off kind of like the amazing spectrum of games that are being released that some people may not even know about. Like, there were even games at Gen Con that I totally missed. And it's just cool to see how far the industry grows every year. And I've been in it for about 3-4 years now. 2014 was the first year that Lizzie and I started playing hobby games. Yeah. And so that was our first year of kind of trying to figure out what we were doing. And that was more as a consumer. We have 4 content creators. Just have fun and do it and get to know people, be nice, be polite, and just get out there and talk to people.
And one of the things you clearly did, which some people are more sensitive to or less sensitive to, is you started working for this other guy, right? Like, you came in, it wasn't like you out the gate you said, I'm gonna make my channel and my thing, and you sort of came in under the Druid City Games umbrella, and clearly it worked out well, as not only the opportunity to get in and get experience and exposure, but also, as you were talking about, the learning experience from the mentorship or guidance of James. And you know, in that, for the Shia LaBeouf thing, a different one, just as a recommendation I often give to people who are struggling with their comfort zone or getting out there, or like a really useful technique is most people know somebody or can imagine somebody who's capable of doing what they're not, right? So you're like, what? So it becomes like, what would James do, right? Or what would this person do? You're like, if James was here, he would say this. He'd walk out, and you'd be amazed how clearly somebody can describe what somebody else would do, as opposed to like, well, what would you do? I don't know. Well, what James, just do what you said James was going to do, and then you can walk in those shoe steps, right? So you did mention, you didn't mention anything. I mentioned that you had a game design. Is that something you're comfortable talking about yet?
Sure, absolutely.
I know nothing about it. I reached out to people like what they remembered from Gen Con, and somebody sent me photos of playing your game.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm curious about it.
That's cool. So I'm co-designing with Chris Strain, who's the designer of Asking for Troubles, and he's done a few other games as well. So he and I have been working on this for about 2 years. I was working on it a year prior. I actually reached out to him as an artist. I got it to a point where I wanted to start getting some art pieces. Long story short, conversing back and forth, talking about kind of like what the art would look like because of what the game's about. And so we just developed this relationship. We were talking back and forth about the game a lot. And I was kind of asking him questions. I'm like, hey, you're a game designer too. You know, what would you think about this? And as he started to kind of get down into the weeds of the project, he's like, this sounds really cool. I'm like, well, it's kind of gotten to this point where it's unmanageable to me, both because I was working full time and I didn't really know what I was doing. But I was like, would you like to co-design this with me? And he's like, absolutely. And so from that point on, he and I have been just knocking it out. So it is a dice worker placement game set in the late 1800s. It has resource management, variable action slots, variable player powers, and it's been a lot of fun.
And
it's called Fate of the West.
Fate of the West, and thematically, Fate of the West themed, as you might expect it to be.
Yeah, and one of the cool things we've developed this narrative system where the decisions you make throughout the game are either going to impact you immediately or towards the end of the game based on the cards are dual purpose, so you'll choose either a white hat or a black hat, kind of thematic, sort of like Westworld, if you've watched Westworld, where you go into the game and then you choose your white or your black hat. So we're allowing players to develop this narrative where they can actually like choose to make different decisions over the game, and it'll kind of change the way that it works for them.
I actually remember him asking a bunch of narrative game questions when he was making some spreadsheet on forums or to the League of Game Makers. I know Chris Train because he's in the League of Game Makers, but also Asking for Troubles took 2 Kickstarters. The second one, the relaunch, launched when Liftoff launched, and both our games had Around Board and Aliens, and so I got to know him then. And he does a ton of work with Breaking Games. And, you know, he's one of those interesting guys, as you said, not to have a Chris Strain chat, but where he lives in that he's an artist, but he also does graphic design, and he also does game design, and so rule books, right? You get that spectrum of experience when you're working on, which oftentimes leads to very cohesive looking and feeling experience. Fate of the West, nice title. If you haven't secured that, you might want to look into it. It seems too good to be true. What is there a time frame on that thing, or what's the?
So it's been with a few different publishers. We actually just sent off a sell sheet and our rulebook to another publisher. So we're actively pitching that. We're getting feedback from others, and we have interest, and so we're just trying to find the right fit for the game, both for either Kickstarter or retail, and then post distribution. So Chris having a lot more experience in that sort of department with board games, I'm really learning a lot from him. I've learned a lot from James. So letting him kind of take the lead on a lot of that as I learn the processes for this, because I actually have a lot of games in the lineup that I've just been designing over the last couple of years as well. So this is kind of the first one, and it went so well, it really gave me kind of a lot of energy to finish some of the other ones that I'm working on. So.
And so this but there is a version of this where you're just bypassing Kickstarter, right? It sounds like there's a version where you're pitching to publishers and just saying,
we're trying to get to retail. So we are trying to look at publishers that can get it straight to retail, and if that doesn't work, we are comfortable with going to Kickstarter. It's just, where does that fit with what publisher?
Sure. As an aside, it's certainly worth going the publisher route. I mean, you're busy, he's busy, there's all that. But there is something to be said, And it looked like a big game, so I don't know if that's where you want to cut your teeth. But there is something to be said, right, as somebody on the media side who's making all of this content and talking to Kickstarter creators and playing Kickstarter games and prototypes and just the whole spectrum of things you do. There is something to be said about going through the process of doing a Kickstarter that is, to give you insights and experience within sort of more to the metal of what that process is like. Not that that's a reason to do it. Like, the reason to do it needs to be you want to do it. But there is an opportunity there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, man, it sounds cool. I mean, it sounds, dense, but you like dense games. That's why you like legendary creatures.
It's definitely a midweight game. I'd put it probably like three or higher for the weight complexity. So there's a lot of moving pieces. It's a Euro, and even though it has dice, like, there's a ton of mitigation. So it's not like, So,
have you talked to the folks at Kids Table Board Game and Burnt Island Games?
I have not reached out to them yet, but I know both Capels very well.
Not that, like, I mean, I feel like most of their stuff is all, Joshua does, so I don't know how that works, but like, when you described it, it seemed like a game that might be a fall-on to people who like Endeavor.
That's fair. I mean, I previewed Endeavor, and I would say that, yeah, it fits right in that kind of weight.
So I don't, I would, they had this huge explosion with Endeavor on that Bird Island, but I don't know that they have a whole bunch of stuff coming out after. Like, that was sort of their, so there might be a play there, but I don't know. Just from when you described it, I was like, oh, all right. So cool. All right. So we diverged from Board Game Spotlight, but you're running it with Lizzie, as well as a number of other contributors. Jimmy Hudson's awesome as well. James is involved here and there. He's going to be working in your podcast, albeit from LA, I presume.
Correct.
And so, I mean, other than we talked about the services. It's what is it? It's August 2018, right? When you look at, I don't know, August 2019, what are your goals? Like, when you're like, what's your roadmap business plan for Board Game Spotlight? Where do you see it in a year?
Well, in a year, we want to continue to offer the services we have, but we also want to start expanding and looking at other ways to grow. One thing we've been doing from conventions is our live streams. So we live stream from the convention, and we do on the man on the street type things you'd see on TV, where we're just in the trenches, and we're talking to booths, and we're talking to publishers and other creators. And so that's something that's gained a lot of traction, and we hope to actually bring that in a larger sense within a year. So I know Game Trade Media and Twist Gaming, they do all sorts of things similar to that, but we would also like to get our feet in the pool, so to speak, there for the live streams on the floor.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like some of the media creators that have come in from other avenues, while oftentimes larger in volume and polish, sometimes don't feel as connected to the space. So probably an opportunity for you guys is to continue to carry that one of the people vibe as you grow and you do more.
Right.
Awesome. Well, those are all my questions. Is there anything else you want to toss in?
I mean, for me, I'm excited for Skull Hollow. I mean, I know this isn't about you, but I mean, to be honest with you, I'm really excited about Skull Hollow, which launches in September, right?
Yeah,
September,
right October. So right around there. We're gonna figure it out. But yeah. Also, well, yeah, the it's been a thrill to work on that game. We're pulling together the last pieces, but it's very I've Pencil First Games has done this thing where, like, we have one track which has emerged which is like the herbaceous, Sunset Over Water, Sprouts, like accessible, gorgeous, Beth Sobel art, Steve Finn, and very good price point. Like, there's this sort of this casual family line, but it's not like kids or like family adult line. I don't know what it is, but like there's that thread, and that's really been successful. And then next to that thread, I have these other like amazing games I love and want to make, and like, so Legendary Creatures falls in there, Heroes Welcome falls in there with Marco Blanc, and Skull Hollow. We're super excited about. So they're not as it's not as easy of a narrative as the herbaceous line, but I think they're all sort of cool, and doing an asymmetric game is crazy too, right? Having the different creatures and balancing them and making it work. But
there's a lot of balance.
Yeah. But you know, we're gonna. These are some of the coolest meeples to be made ever.
You showed them off at Gen Con, and I'm very excited for them. They look awesome.
Yeah, they're coming along. But cool, man. Thanks for being on, and thanks for everything you guys do at Board Game Spotlight. You know, both just the being available and around and supporting with giveaways and community events and just talking about games and just, you know, because it's more just being a forum for positive board game discussion and then also for the services you're offering for Kickstarter creators. So yeah, keep rocking, man. And thank you for your service to the country as an aside.
Thank you very much. It's been a dream come true. You know, I wouldn't have looked back 10 years ago and say, oh, where are you going to be? And this is where we are. But Lizzie and I have a great time. We love it. You know, she's getting way more comfortable, which is awesome because she is really diving in. And she's just, man, she kicks my butt at these games.
Yeah. She was around at the event at Gen Con too. She came with you, right? Was your kid? Your kid was there too, or you have a?
No. We have a 1-year-old. He wasn't there though. Yeah.
Cool, man. All right. Thanks everyone for watching as well. Bye. Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.